Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here for this evening's meeting of the Higher Purpose Forum, co-hosted with HJI International Graduate School. This is a very important meeting. We've been hoping and planning for this meeting with Dr. Ward for most of this year. In one sense, this is the final presentation and discussion meeting of the season. We won't be meeting again until September, I expect. But this is the beginning of a series that we have been planning to discuss the importance of the family as a pivotal, having a pivotal role in the development of positive peace. So we're starting something here, and we're really honored to have Dr. Ward as our speaker and Mrs. Mika Deshotel as our respondent. As we begin this meeting, I'd like to ask Dean Boyd of the HJI Graduate School to also welcome our audience. As you know, HJI is co-hosting this event.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you very much for the opportunity to co-sponsor these programs together with the Higher Purpose Forum. And welcome everyone tonight. As Jim said, we have a very special topic that we want to share. We're looking forward to it. And just want to congratulate Higher Purpose Forum for the good work that it's doing, for all your hard work, Jim, and everything that you've accomplished in this last season. And it's really been a pleasure for HCI to be able to co-sponsor these events with you. So we're looking forward to a good program tonight. I am the Dean of Enrollment Management and Student Life at HJI. And so I'm here in that capacity to representing HCI to welcome you and to thank you for coming. We consider HCI to be a partner with the Higher Purpose Forum on these important topics. And as such, this contributes to the fulfillment of one of our purposes as a home of thought for the unification community. So to that end, we're always interested in sharing with everyone about our programs of study, about the good activities that we have. So during the course of the program, I will be dropping into the chat box my contact information and some links that might be of interest to you or others who may be considering taking a class or entering a degree program here at HTI. So with that, Jim, I'll turn it back to you. And once again, thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight to be with us.
Thank you, Dean Boyd. And I would like to say at the outset that I'm a student at HJI International Graduate School, and I'm enjoying it and benefiting immensely. And if you are in our audience this evening and haven't ever taken a class at HJI International Graduate School, I would encourage you to try one class in the coming semester. I think you'll find it a big surprise in terms of the growth, intellectual and spiritual growth that you can experience as a student at HJI International Graduate School. Okay. Oops, sorry. So welcome to the Higher Purpose Forum. Again, we're co-hosting this event with HJI International Graduate School. I'd just like to mention at the outset that we're also now a partner with the Center of Economic and Social Justice. We're working with them on the issue of economic democracy. And we are also, Higher Purpose Forum is also a member of the Braver Angels Network. In fact, I've just returned from a 4-day convention in Kenosha, Wisconsin with Braver Angels, which is a very exciting and important organization. Tonight's program is titled The Role of the Natural Family in the Realization of World Peace. And our speaker is Dr. Thomas Ward, Provost and Professor at HJ International Graduate School. And after his presentation, we'll have a response from Mrs. Mika Deshotel, who's the Associate Dean of Student Life at HJ International Graduate School, and she's also a doctoral candidate. And then we'll have about 20 or 30 minutes of moderated discussion. This topic this evening is the first in the 5th topic area we're developing. You see the bottom bullet in the right-hand box there, the family and positive peace. This is the first meeting on that topic. And this is one of 4 topics in our area of counterproposal, which include the topics of building a racially integrated culture, justice and economic democracy, the unity of science, spirituality, and religion. We've had multiple presentations in each of these areas, and we hope to continuously develop our expertise in those areas. And the initial area, the worldview we've been developing for the last 4 years, is an area titled Race and Providence in America, which is now being taught publicly whenever we have a chance. This evening's meeting, please be aware that there are participants here joining us this evening from a range of faiths and perspectives. So in our language and in our content, let's make sure that everyone understands and feel welcomed by the conversation in today's meeting. Our discussion period, which follows the two presentations, is an important part of the program, and we encourage your participation. You could do that by raising your hand using the Zoom raise hand function so that the moderator, that's me, can call on you during the discussion period. Or if you're not interested in speaking, you can simply type up your comment or question in the chat, and it will be handled by our chat moderator. We certainly won't get to everything that's in the chat, but we'll try to get to those which we think fit best with the conversation. This meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted on the HJI and the Higher Purpose Forum YouTube channels. And we will end this meeting no later than 8:30 p.m. So it'll be a total of about 90 minutes. I'd now like to introduce our speakers. Dr. Ward serves as Provost and Professor of Peace and Development Studies at the HJ International Graduate School of Peace and Public Leadership. Previously, he served for 18 years as the Dean of the University of Bridgeport's College of Public and International Affairs, where he taught graduate courses on culture and development, peace and conflict studies, and political and economic integration. Dr. Ward has lived and worked in the United States, Europe, Latin America, and East Asia. He lectures in English, French, and Spanish languages. His writings and research have been published in numerous newspapers and journals in the U.S. and in Asia, and he has authored or edited more than 10 books. He has been a Fulbright Scholar, a Taiwan Foreign Ministry Research Fellow, and a guest lecturer at the Academy of Social Science in Beijing and at Academia Sinekia's Institute of Modern History in Taipei. Dr. Ward earned his doctoral degree at the La Salle University, a Master's of Education from the Unification Theological Seminary, and a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Notre Dame. Mika Deshotel, our respondent this evening, is a wife and mother of 4, residing in Bridgeport, Connecticut. She currently serves as the Associate Dean of Student Life at HJI and is entering the dissertation phase of the Doctoral of Ministry program at the graduate school. And with that, I would now like to introduce our primary speaker for today, Dr. Thomas Ward.
Thank you very much, James, and thanks to everyone that's joined us today. And I'd like to reiterate what Dean Boyd said. Congratulations, Jim Edgerly, at the conclusion of this past season, 2023-24 of the Higher Purpose Forum. I know you've had at least 14 sessions over the past year, and I thank you. You're really inviting all of us to broaden our minds and to become part of a broader conversation that that challenges everyone to go beyond their partisanship, to go beyond, likewise, maybe their sectarianism. And I think that's really important, because if we do want to have a world of peace, we have to learn how to communicate within that world. Consider that's also one of the main purposes of Unification Theological Seminary. My presentation this evening that relates to the centrality of the family is actually the final lecture in a course that I teach at Unification at HJI, which is called Unification Worldview. And that particular course, I like to sometimes call it Causa 2.0. It invites discussion and exploration of questions and issues that have have not been dealt with to the extent that they need to be in our contemporary world. And I believe that unification worldview provides some very important insights into fundamental questions that people are grappling with on a day-to-day basis in our country and around the world. So yeah, if I can just put a plug in, if those of you who are interested, if you find tonight's program an interesting one, I hope you'll give some thought to taking a course, and possibly even my course this coming fall. I was really fortunate to have James Edgerly in my class last term. He certainly kept me on my toes, and it was a good exercise. I really appreciated having you there, Jim. So
Too
anyway,
much work.
That's right. Yeah, you do have to work, but I think you'll walk away with something. That's for sure from the process. So let's jump into tonight's topic. Let me first of all, because I'm not going to speak about positive peace in my talk tonight, I do want to just define it for you. One of the founding thinkers in the area of peace studies, by the way, it's an academic discipline that's been around for about 80 years, is John Galtung. He's a Norwegian. And he developed a whole series of terms and terminologies that are, I would say, foundational to peace studies. One of them is the concept of positive peace. There are two kinds of peace, according to Galtung. There's negative peace. And what is negative peace? Negative peace is the absence of war, period. And positive peace is a peace which is beginning to address the fundamental issues that caused the war, that caused the conflict in the first place. So whether it's hunger, or it's territorial disputes, or it's ethnic or racial issues, whatever they are, as those things begin to be addressed, people begin to be able to let go of the various drives within them, which have led to conflict. So I just wanted to mention that to open. So let me now share my slides, and I'm happy to jump into this topic with you. And again, I thank all of you who've joined us this evening. So my fundamental focus tonight is the role of the natural family in the realization of world peace. If people can please turn off their mics. Natural family, you'll see it is a term that is referenced, not directly natural family. They talk about the family as the natural. You'll see they use that terminology in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 16, C, and we will look at that this evening. So that's going to be the focus of our talk this evening, and the centrality of the family. So all of us as physical beings, our lives come to an end. And even if you don't believe that there's a spiritual realm after this physical existence, the reality is that at the end of your life, whether you like it or not, there are people, probably the people that are closest to you, that are going to make assessments about you. They're going to say, oh, so-and-so was a good person, or was he or she a bad person? And the question is, what's the criterion upon which we determine whether a person is good or bad? It's certainly not their intelligence. It's certainly not their willpower, and it's not their wealth. None of those things are the bottom line decision. There are plenty of people that might have great intelligence or great willpower or great wealth who are demonic. So we don't define people as being good based upon that. We define people as being good or bad based upon their quality of love that we felt through them. Even if everybody didn't necessarily feel that I was a loving person, if there are certain people to whom I really express my love and my heart, the reality is that at least for that core group of people, I will be cherished as having been a good person. So all of us want to be a good person. And the way that we can be able to do that is to be loving people. That's what really defines a good person or a bad person, the quality of our love in this life. And Father and Mother Moon, who are the co-founders of HJI, they have really emphasized the importance of leaving behind a legacy of love, and called upon all of us to seek to do that. So I want to suggest that there's a need for new thinking about humanity's essence, particularly for those of us who are in the Western world. Sometimes a human being is classified, we know, based upon the notion that we are part of what's referred to as the Homo sapiens, and Homo sapien translates into a wise man. Sorry, it doesn't. It should be wise being, but it translates as a wise man. But I want to suggest that actually, what's more important, particularly if love is the bottom line in determining whether we are good or not, is that we should be homo amans, which means a loving man or person, or a homo amoris, a person of love. That would be the bottom line issue normally. And emotion is the driving force in making that kind of a determination. So Reverend Moon himself, he made this observation. He said, if we analyze our mind, we find that it has the functions of intellect, emotion, and will. What is the most fundamental among the three? It is neither will or intellect, but emotion. He said this back in 1969. He went on to say, the emotional relationships of fallen human beings have yet to be established centering on God. Within the unification view and also within the Christian view as a whole, there's a notion that at some point there was a separation between God and humankind. And as a consequence, something was broken inside of humankind, and something is still broken inside of humankind. That is why intellect was brought to the front as a means and way to recreate this relationship in fallen human beings. However, originally, intellect does not come first. In other words, he's saying here that intellect served as a way to try to help us to get to a point where we can reestablish the proper relationship with God, but that's not where things should be in a human being as God originally intended us to be. Emotion should come first. That is why it should be emotion, intellect, and will, rather than intellect, emotion, and will. So often in the West, we speak about human beings as consisting of intellect, emotion, and will. But Reverend Moon's point is actually, no, at the center of everything should be emotion first, then intellect, then will, really in a human being. So where is love best fostered and developed? In his book, The Great Learning, Confucius spoke of this, and he said, the ancients who wished to illustrate illustrious virtue throughout the kingdom first ordered their own states. Wishing to order well their states, they first regulated their families. So we talked about what is the basis for world peace. Certainly for Confucius, the family played a central role. And there's a whole quote here, which I'm going to break down. And if we look at it, he talks about that, in the process of development of a human being, one needs to undergo an investigation of things. They need to develop their knowledge to the utmost. Then they need to become sincere in their thoughts. They need to rectify their hearts, and they need to cultivate their persons. That's a very important concept within Eastern philosophy, the notion of self-cultivation, And we are all touched by a person who really has that ability, who has that kind of control, who's able to demonstrate the proper attitude, heart, and love towards others. That's a person who's been able to rectify his or her heart and have been able to cultivate their personality. Now, within the unification worldview, or what we refer to in terms of our church as divine principle, these different categories have a certain meaning. But let me first read this quote from Confucius, talking about his own development in these areas. I love this quote. Confucius says, at 15, I set my heart upon learning. At 30, I had planted my feet firm upon the ground. At 40, I no longer suffered from perplexities. At 50, I knew what were the biddings of heaven. At 60, I heard them with a docile ear, meaning he no longer fought them. At 70, I could follow the dictates of my own heart, for what I desired no longer overstepped the boundaries of right. So he came to incarnate the things that he searched for, and finally was able to meet God, finally was able to hear what, or he calls it heaven, hear what heaven expected of him. And though he struggled at first, he was finally able to receive it. wholeheartedly and come to embody it. So this process, these 5 different steps that we have outlined in the Great Learning, and we have here from Confucius' words in the Analects, these words are very close to the process that we know as the perfection of individuality within the teachings of Father and Mother Moon. This whole notion of achieving what's referred to as the first blessing, or the cultivation of self, the perfection of the personality. Then he speaks about regulation of family. And I don't think he's talking about just some kind of lawly regulation, not at all. I think he's talking about establishment of a family where at the center of it is this rectified heart, is this cultivation of personality. And so that corresponds pretty much to what we refer to within the teachings of unificationism as the second blessing. And then thirdly, he speaks about, Confucius talks about 5 basic relationships that exist within society and the world. And if we look at those relationships, and I'm likewise, I'm going to go beyond the gender issues here and make some slight changes. If we look at these categories within Confucianism, we find that 3 of the areas that he dedicates attention to relate to the family: parent and child, husband and wife, the relationship between older sibling and younger sibling. And the parent-child relationship, the kind of relationship that we have with our parent, it helps us to know how to relate to authorities. If we have a trusting relationship with our parents, we will be comfortable, likewise relating to those who are maybe our bosses in the future, our teachers. That whole process is cultivated, first of all, in the family. And likewise, through our relationship with our siblings, we will also know how to build proper relationships with friends. Who are my elders? Who are my juniors? How do I relate to them? We would go through that entire process. So basically, Confucius really looked at the world that he was a part of through the optic of the family. And that was a great part of Asian civilization, if you will. So they established good order in their states, and their kingdoms became recognized as a model of virtue. And that refers to what we would refer to as having dominion of creation through our societies, finally being able to do these 3 things. Now, again, these 3 concepts, be fruitful, multiply, have dominion, are not just limited to unificationism. We find those concepts in Judaism, we find them in Christianity. And if we look at the book of Genesis, these 3, what they're referred to as blessings, they're evoked by the Creator towards the first family, Adam and Eve. They're evoked towards Noah. They are evoked towards Abraham. This whole notion of being fruitful, multiplying, and having dominion. So this process whereby we rectify our hearts, we cultivate our personalities, we relate to our families, really guided by heart, and we likewise reach out to our nations and to our communities with that same dimension of concern and care. Now, Sigmund Freud and Confucius shared one thing in common, and what they both understood was that the front line of everything in terms of the development of human beings was the family. The family is that front line, the place where things are supposed to be developed and where people can be able to be prepared to live and contribute to their societies, to contribute to their countries, and to contribute to world peace, ultimately. So what reference point, I'm sorry, somehow, so I can try to move this down. What reference point does Western society have for appreciation for and understanding of the family? Well, we don't necessarily have the best reference point in the West. I mean, we have the greatest reference point of all in one sense, but in terms of appreciating and understanding the family, we face some challenges. What about Jesus himself? I grew up as a Roman Catholic, and I don't know how many of those of you who are watching this were raised as Roman Catholics. But as a child, I did my elementary studies at a Catholic school, 1st through 8th grade. And every single paper that I wrote on, as I began any single assignment, I had to put at the top above my name, JMJ, and the little cross. And JMJ means Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. That's the Holy Family. But if we look closely at the Holy Family, is it a model for us to know how to build families in society? Not necessarily. Jesus lived with his stepfather and his mother. If we look at the Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, there's clear evidence of some estrangement between Jesus and his family members. They didn't necessarily become his disciples. They were concerned about his behavior, to the point where Jesus says, "Who is my father? Who is my mother? Who are my brothers? Those who do the will of God are my father, my mother, my brothers." He was concerned about how they didn't really understand him. And Jesus himself, he doesn't show us how to live with a spouse, nor does he provide us an example of how to raise children. And when we look at Western society, if we think about the economy, which I know is one of the big areas for Higher Purpose Forum, if we look at Adam Smith, if we study the life of Adam Smith, we find that he lost his father when he was an infant. He lived with a mother. He was a single child. He had no wife and he had no children. And also, if we look at the founding basis of the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Independence was really very, very strongly influenced by the writings of John Locke, to the point where one could almost say that that Jefferson almost plagiarized from John Locke. There's so many things in the Second Treatise of Government that is found in the Declaration of Independence. But he didn't do that. But he did learn a great deal from John Locke. But the reality is, John Locke also was a person who had no wife and had no children. So in the West, our dynamic has not been individual family. In the West, our reference point has been the individual vis-a-vis society. That's been the way that we've been looking at things for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. We've had that as our reference point or our starting point. Nevertheless, family was very important at the center of the Pilgrim experience, and a central narrative, likewise, of pre-slavery Jamestown, that experience in America. If we look at the Pilgrims who came to America in 1620, we find that out of that group of I think 102 individuals, 31 of them were women. So the Pilgrims, they devoted their lives to God. They had devoted their lives to the sacraments, and they upheld the marriage and the blessings of marriage. They had high regard for marriage, and violations of the marriage vows led to severe chastening. These were things that were held. The family was very, very important to them, no question about it. And the Pilgrims contrasted very sharply with the conquistadors and the viceroys who followed them throughout the Iberian American states, South America and Central America. The conquistadors who came to the Americas and the viceroys who replaced them as the rulers in South America, they did not marry. As a matter of fact, the viceroys were not allowed to marry, because the King of Spain was concerned that if they married, the viceroys would come there with their spouse, and they would become not viceroys, but they would become king and queen of the various vice regencies of South America. So they didn't want that at all. But in the case of the Pilgrims, they came with their families. They began with that as an ideal. And amazingly, even if we look at the Jamestown colony, where we know slavery began in 1619, tragically. But from 1607 to 1614, there was an amazing relationship that developed between the British settlers who came there and the Native American community, including the marriage of John Rolfe to Pocahontas. And by the way, you may know that two of the American first ladies were the descendants of Pocahontas. I'm talking about the bride of Woodrow Wilson, and also Nancy Reagan, the bride of Ronald Reagan. They were both descendants of Pocahontas. So this marriage was a very special event, and really offered a great hope about the possibility of racial harmony. Tragically, that did not happen. And tragically, likewise, this colony became responsible for the spread of slavery in the Americas as well. Trends in marriage today in the United States are not good. The marriage rates in America as of 2018 were at an all-time low. I don't have numbers of the last few years, but marriage has been at an all-time low. And also divorce rates have improved a little bit over the last few years, but also again they're on a downslope since 2018. And today in America, only 18% of American households are families with married parents. There's a lot of senior citizens, obviously, in America who don't have children, but there are only 18% of our households are families that have married parents and children living with them. So it's the lowest that it's ever been in our history, this circumstance. And we know how important that marriages are. By the way, our marriage rates out of wedlock, including white, Black, Hispanic, and Asian, is 71% as of 2019, according to the American Enterprise Institute. So very, very alarming what's happening to the American family, which we have said already is really important for the cultivation of heart, of being able to build a successful society. We know for a fact that the students who receive mostly A's in school, the largest percentage of them come from intact married families. We also know that students who graduate with a bachelor's degree, by far the largest percentage of them come from intact married families. We know that the families that have the least amount of arrest, juvenile delinquency, are children in married families. We know also that families where family members are involved in criminal assaults, the lowest number of families who have those types of challenges are families where there is a father and mother, married families. So it's extremely important. The Atlantic, one of the most important American publications, even if occasionally they write very negative things about our movement, they've also written very positive things at times. The reality is that in 2020, the Atlantic wrote the nuclear family is still indispensable. These are their words. This is February 2020. A nuclear family headed by two loving married parents remains the most stable and safest environment for raising children. Then they go on to elaborate on all the qualities that exist in the traditional family with a father and mother. It's a stable environment. It fosters behavioral stability. Children feel safe with their parents. They have a sense of consistency. It's a place where they can develop learning skills more easily. They can learn to share responsibility. And there's also a strong sense of physical and emotional support within the traditional family. It was Hillary Rodham Clinton, you may recall, who wrote a book that was called It Takes a Village to Raise a Child, talking about the important role that the community plays. Well, this observation by Mrs. Clinton was partially true, but not completely true. And this has been further clarified by some of the work that has recently been done by several Harvard economists. The first one, first two I'm going to cite, they're the two photos on the bottom there, are Raz Chetty and Nathaniel Hendren. And they have come to the conclusion that Black boys are more likely to achieve upward economic mobility if there are more Black fathers in a neighborhood and more married couples as well. And for poor children of all races, Chetty and his team have found that the strongest fraction of children with single parents in a given community is the strongest and most robust predictor of economic mobility or its absence. Children raised in communities with high percentages of single mothers are less likely to move up. In other words, it takes a village, but of married people to raise the odds that a poor child will have a shot at the American dream. And likewise, Robert Sampson makes a similar observation. He says, family structure is one of the strongest, if not the strongest predictor of variations in violence across cities in the United States. So those of you who are watching tonight, if any of you are thinking about moving, and even if you're thinking about moving into an urban area, the most important thing that you want to look at the neighborhood that you're considering is the percentage of the people who, in that family who are in that area who have two-parent families. If there are two-parent families in a community, many of them, there will be less crime, significantly less crime. So that is a factor to help you to predict whether or not you're going into the right family. That's a key point. So it takes more than a village. It takes a village of married two-parent families to lessen crime rates and to improve economic mobility. If we have a village with those things, and if you're living in a village like that, you're living in a blessed community. You can be happy because you are living in a blessed community. I'm lucky to be living in a community like that. It makes a big difference. Among the top 5 economies in the world today, 3 of them are Asian: China, Japan, and India. And in all 3 of those countries, family is extremely important. And it's one of the reasons demonstrably why these countries are able to advance and go forward, because with a family-centric approach, you are going to approach things in a very different way. As a parent, you are going to be thinking, oh, I have to put aside money in order to be able to save so that my children can be able to eventually go on to university to do studies. I have to put aside money for my retirement because when I grow old, I don't want to be a financial burden on my kids. They have enough financial burdens taking care of their own children. I don't want to be a burden on them. So somehow those societies which are family-centric are going to have savings. And when there are savings in a country, guess what? Interest rates will be lower than if you have to borrow from other countries. And therefore, because interest rates are lower, it's going to be easier to build in those countries. And those societies are going to develop more quickly and more fully going forward. So again, even in terms of the development of economies, one of the key dimensions of it is that basically economies be family-centric economies. Sun Myung Moon referred to the family as the school of love. Now, I know that there is a big church out there, I'm not going to say which one, that uses the expression family is the school of love. God bless them. But this photo that I show here is from a copyrighted book from 1984. And Reverend Moon used that term several years before that. You know, this is from the Kausa lecture manual. So family is the school of love. You can Google it, but where did it start? It started with Father Moon and Mother Moon, this term. Other people use it. They're certainly welcome to use it. Please use it. It's a very, very important term. And I just mentioned that it originated with Father and Mother Moon because they've given so much thought to what it means to form a family and the dimensions that are involved in that, you know. This is from the Kausa lecture manual of 1984. This is verbatim. The family is the school of love. The family is where the essence of the love of God can be experienced and practiced. It is the God-given school of love. The essential nature of love is threefold: parental love, filial love, child's love, conjugal love. All of these three loves can be learned and experienced within the relationship of the human family. Learned and experienced. You know, that's really important, you know, learned and experienced. It's not just something that happens. I think a lot of people see marriage as, well, that's just a step in the process. No, it's not a step in the process. It's a fundamental place where you are really called upon. Have you rectified your heart? Have you cultivated your personality? Because within a couple of years, you're going to have children that need to learn and experience through you the way in which to live, the way in which to grow, the way in which to relate to society and to the world that they're going to face. So at the center of all of the work of Father and Mother Moon has been the commitment to the God-centered family as the key to societal and world transformation. Reactivation of the heart and cultivation of the person opens the way to being responsible as a parent. Father and Mother Moon talk about 4 affective realms, or 4 realms of heart: the realm of parents, the realm of spouse, the realm of siblings, the realm of children. Each of these realms, and if we had more time, we could look at Erik Erikson, or we could We could look at Maslow. We could look at Bloom. We could look at Krathwohl. A number of individuals who have done taxonomies related to growth and development of the human person, and we would see that in each of them, that somehow there's a relationship between the development of the individual and the experiences they have along the way that either damage or contribute to that development, you know. So as children, we need to develop confidence of being loved and to give love. It's really, you know, children have confidence if they're loved by their parents. If they're not loved by their parents, they feel guilty from the start. They feel nobody loves them because even their parents don't love them. Siblings, it's a place where we can learn how to a reference point for elders and juniors. If elder siblings have been loved by their parents, they're going to want to love their younger siblings, and they're going to want to instill that confidence in them. And those children, when they go to school, will know how to relate to other children. And then everything is a preparation to become a spouse. That's the defining relationship of our lives, to become a spouse. Are our hearts rectified? Have we cultivated our persons for that moment? That's the ultimate challenge where we have to go. And finally, then, as parents, we are the ones, if we can be able to love our children, if we can be able to show that we love our spouse, if we can be able to relate properly with our siblings across the trajectory of our lives, through all of those processes, we will prepare those who are our children and those whom we interface with to be able to interface successfully in a society which, like the societies of Asia, Japan, or Korea, or India, or China, likewise should have a family-centric template that serves as the basis for it. And also there is the three-generational family. I know that this is something that Jim Edgerly likes to talk about a lot. This is very, very important, you know. First of all, parents love children. And I can say as a parent, I made lots of mistakes as a parent, you know, but now I get to be a grandparent. And when you're a grandparent, you're careful not to try to make the same mistakes. You're much more careful, you know. And also, you learn to relate to your parents and your children in a different way through that process, you know. I have to be obedient to my children. I can't just do with my grandchildren what I want to do. I can't just give them candy. I have to check everything with my children to make sure what I'm doing is the right thing. That is a process, you know. Through the whole process, it's a wonderful thing, you know. And actually, all the love that you couldn't give to your children, you can give to your grandchildren. It's a remarkable thing, that process, you know. And it's wonderful for the children that they get this double dose of love, the love from their parents, but also the unconditional love of their grandparents that just, you know, want to make up for every mistake that they made as parents, and might want to make sure that these children feel 100% loved. It's a remarkable experience that we are able to have. And through the grandparents, there's a process of inheritance and transmission. And there's a way to correct and reinforce what was right in the past, and also any mistakes that were made in the past. Wonderful. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. No time to read the whole thing here, but I'm just going to read just a little bit of it. It says, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world, whereas disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind, and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief and freedom from fear and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. So basically, they had experienced World War II. They'd experienced what happened under draconian, genocidal leaders, and they didn't want to have it ever happen again. And so they carefully wrote and drafted this preamble. You know, I'm sorry, there's not time to read all the way through it, you know. But one thing it does say at the end of the preamble, it says, every organ of society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance, both among the peoples of member states themselves and among the peoples of territories under their jurisdiction. The idea was that the rights that are outlined there would be protected. Now, Article 16 in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights makes a very interesting observation. It says that the family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society, and it adds, is entitled to protection by society and the state. The family, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says, must be protected. And the state has a responsibility to protect the family. This is a fundamental responsibility. When we understand in what we've covered so far, the incredible role that the family plays in terms of the affective, the emotional development of society in a healthy manner, it's obvious that it has to be protected. Otherwise, then we find a society that is from the inception filled with fear, distrust, terror, because of the fact that parents don't know how to love their children, don't know how to care for their children, don't know how to be patient with their children. In 2012, Reverend Sun Myung Moon passed, but in that same year, the General Assembly of the United Nations declared that June 1st should be recognized as the Global Day of Parents. And if you go to the United Nations website, there are very interesting things there. This is just one side. It says Global Day of Parents, the 1st of June, and there's a little narrative there talking about a father going to work together with his wife, in a village in India, and it also talks there about the one second. Families remain at the center of social life in ensuring the well-being of their members, educating and socializing children and youth, caring for young and old. In particular, family-oriented policies can contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals relating to doing away with poverty and hunger, ensuring healthy lives, and promoting of well-being for all ages, and ensuring educational opportunities throughout the lifespan, and achieving gender equality. Do you see what it says here? It says parents are the key to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Parents, that's the United Nations is recognizing the centrality of the family to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, the very purpose that the entire United Nations is focused on. They recognize that key to that is parents. And the United Nations makes an observation about why they mark international days. International days and weeks are occasions to educate the public on issues of concern, to mobilize political will and resources to address global problems, and to celebrate and reinforce achievements of humanity. The existence of international days predates the establishment of the United Nations, but the UN has embraced them as a powerful advocacy tool. We also mark other UN observances. So this is an advocacy tool for the family, for the central role of the family, which is already outlined in Article 16C of the Universal Declaration of Rights. And I should say that the Global Day of Parents really, that was a very central role in that whole process was done by the Universal Peace Federation. And it was Father and Mother Moon who said on numerous occasions, talking about the United States, and I think about the United Nations as well, that it was so important to recognize the role of parents. And I applaud Dr. Thomas Walsh, whom you see here, and Dr. Taj Ahmad meeting with the Pope because of the important role that UPF played in terms of facilitating and encouraging the establishment of the Global Day of Parents, which is celebrated June 1st every year at the United Nations. I believe that 16.3, concerning the centrality of the family, that is the work of Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt was such a remarkable person, and I'm blessed. My wife and I, we happen to live in Hyde Park, New York. My wife served for a number of years as the executive director of the Eleanor Roosevelt Center up here back in the 1980s. And what a remarkable person she was, and I'm sure that somehow her hand. And by the way, she was a very religious person. She had written prayers in her purse, they found, on the day that she died, and she prayed regularly. Very serious person about this, and I'm sure that this was something that she, who oversaw the draft, she didn't necessarily write it all, but who oversaw the draft, I'm sure that for her, this recognition was something that was extremely important to her. And likewise, Mother Moon, I know that for Mother Moon, likewise, she has emphasized so much the centrality of the family. She's traveling all around the world and been to Africa many times, been to Latin America, the United States, throughout Asia, Europe, and always she is talking about the centrality of the family, the necessity of the family, and that this is something that has to be brought to total fruition. In the United States, National Parents' Day was signed into law by President Clinton on October 14th, 1994. And it's important to read what the National Archives Museum says about National Parents' Days. It says, although not as well known as the traditional Mother's and Father's Days, National Parents' Day nonetheless bears an important place in United States history and culture. The day is designated to celebrate the significant role that parents play in the lives of their children and to promote smart and responsible parenting. On August 5th, 1994, a joint resolution was introduced in the House of Representatives to establish the fourth Sunday in July as Parents' Day. The House passed it on September 30th and the Senate on October 4th. On October 14th, 1994, President Bill Clinton signed the resolution and National Parents' Day was born. And again, just as in the case of the Day of Global Parents, the American Freedom Coalition, an organization founded by Father and Mother Moon, played a central role in the establishment of National Parents' Day. Again, a symbol, and as it says here, it bears an important place in United States history and culture, recognizing that central role that parents play, and the decision by President Clinton to sign this into law and to make it something that is commended and celebrated every single year. And certainly the American Freedom Coalition and the American Clergy Leadership Conference continue to play a central role in making sure that this is something that has an impact in communities all across America. My final thoughts: religion, the seeking for God, and the role of the family. So religion and the seeking for God. If we look at all religions, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, all of them essentially salvation or the whole matter of a reconciliation with God is the individual and God. Unificationism, on the other hand, takes it to a different level and says individual salvation is not enough. We need to move to the level of family. That's the key dimension, contribution, if you will, of unificationism. And the blessing ceremony central to the unification worldview, when properly understood, serves to bring religion and the highest religious experience beyond the individual level. It takes things beyond that particular level. And as I said, that family-centric approach, it has an impact upon the community. As we said, a safer community, an economically more prosperous community. It has an impact upon the nation, a safer and economically more prosperous and hopefully altruistically thinking family, and upon the world. That's a defining dimension. And the blessing ceremony is not something which is limited to unificationists. People in any faith, they are encouraged, if they're inspired by this view, to participate. You can certainly try to work within your own faith and within your own marriage and operate on that level. But you might also consider exploring the ways in which the unification blessing can contribute to your family and contribute also to your religion. We're not trying to get everyone to join a single church, but we are emphasizing one thing, and that is that the family must be revived, appreciated, and recognized as the central point, if you will, of a safe world. There have been many contributors to the Christian message across history. Plato impacted upon Augustine and Augustinian theology and philosophy. Aristotle impacted upon Aquinas and all the theological developments from there. Islam had a great impact upon the Christianity in Spain. You know, in Spanish, people are always saying, "Si Dios quiere," if God wills, that's from Islam. You know, Eastern thought had a great impact upon the Jesuit priest Thomas Merton. Darwinism had a great impact upon the French Jesuit Teilhard de Chardin. Marx had a great impact upon liberation theology. LGBTQ theory has had an impact upon Episcopalians, Methodists, and people from a variety of faiths. So why not unificationism? Why cannot unificationism also make its contribution to Christianity, and particularly in this crucial area, which according to the UN is central to the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals? To salvage Christianity, further insight, revelation is always needed in order to be able to go forward successfully. We believe that the unification worldview is a way through which a meaningful contribution can be able to be made. I thank you all very much for your kind attention, and let me conclude there.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. I think I just completed another semester in the unification worldview, in this case, sharing with us the kind of the universal understanding of the centrality of family in creating a healthy country and a healthy world. And it's very interesting. I have several questions myself to ask, but perhaps we should now turn our attention to our respondent, Mrs. Mika Deshotel, who is an associate dean at HJI. And we're eager to hear your response, Mika.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this very important call. Thank you, Uncle Jim and Dr. Ward and the team for putting this together, and for allowing me to, join this important session. Yeah, I really appreciated your presentation, Dr. Ward. I really felt like your key point was made very clear. The importance of the family to our own salvation, our understanding of God, and leaving a legacy of love. And I as somebody who grew up in the unification movement, I think in some ways, it's easy to kind of take for granted this kind of worldview. For many parents who joined in the 70s and were matched and blessed by Father and Mother Moon, they made a commitment towards world peace by going beyond differences in religion and culture and race. And I think this concept of the family as a school of love is really a gift, I think, for all of us as we continue to reflect on it. And this idea that it's where the essence of love, of the love of God, can be experienced and practiced. I agree in the teachings of Confucius, which is also in line with the unification movement as well, that it's important to cultivate our relationship with God, to be a virtuous person. But it's also true that, as we engage with our families, that actually we continue to become better and better people. Just like, sometimes our internal environment affects our external environment. Our external environment also affects our internal environment. And I've often felt like my whole life started from the moment that I got married and began my family life with my husband. And I really feel that, our families are a gift given to us. I served as a pastor for a number of years in the Connecticut community, and actually even before then, when I was an undergraduate, I took a sociology class, sociology of the family, and I was determined to write a paper about the families of the unification movement. And I realized that there was no one single like specific type, that actually there was such a big range of diversities of families and experiences. And I feel like time and time again that yeah, it's really the hand of God that determines, you know, who is kind of like placed in our family circle and what kinds of challenges we need to go through and grow through in order to become more and more you know, mature individuals and sons and daughters of God. And so one vision, you know, that I have instilled in my mind from Father and Mother Moon is this idea that in the spiritual realm, because we are sons and daughters of our heavenly parent, that actually we become like brothers and sisters even to our own parents. You know, our parents are like our older siblings, our children are like our younger siblings. And I think it's just a kind of a beautiful way of thinking about just a natural way that we can extend our love and generosity to the rest of society, as Dr. Ward was saying. So yeah, I just wanted to point out some of the things I appreciated most, Dr. Ward, from your presentation was highlighting Article 16 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I think that this part that says that the family is a natural and fundamental unit of society and is entitled to protection, I think is so important and valuable that that's in there. And you know, sometimes I think we kind of take it for granted, but I think this presentation really shed more light on just how important it is to protect these important institutions on the most fundamental level. And also I appreciated your sharing of the findings of Chetty and Hendren about the need for a village specifically of married people as an important factor in you know, the progression and movement in society. And you know, community is so important for any family. So a family by themselves, especially like a nuclear family, can be very isolated. But the role of community, especially community that emphasizes the importance of marriage and family, is that much more important. And I think the last thing that I wanted to just mention in my you know, in my role as pastor, since that time, the thing that people have often found the most fascinating is when I share about the practice that we have in our movement of offering children. That there have been families, you know, that have been blessed with, you know, being able to have many children, and then there have been couples who have not had that ability to have children. And so yeah, Father and Mother Moon instilled this tradition to you know, if a family felt called to offer one of their children to a couple that couldn't have their own, and in the process they could experience what it was like to be parents. And yeah, I think that just in experiencing, especially when families can do that and continue to communicate and keep a relationship, that actually it's been so incredibly beautiful and impactful for both families. And so yeah, I think there is something to say, you know, about the things that we've been given, this type of worldview, unification worldview, and the teachings of Father and Mother Moon, and how important, how it reinforces the importance of the family for the sake of society and greater peace. So those are my reflections. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you, Mika.
Thank you, Mika. Thank you, Mika. Well, we're very enriched to hear these two perspectives on the family. My experience on the family is really, to me, very definitely that it's a three-generation structure, that the emotions and emotional experience and richness of the family is fulfilled when it involves relationships through grandparents, children, and grandchildren. It's a little bit different, or I would say quite fundamentally different than the emotions and the dimensions and the kind of quality of love in a two-generation family, which is what, I didn't really experience a three-generation family until I became a grandparent. But I do think that there's something very special, a dimension of health and diversity and spirituality that can be discovered if we really promote not just the parent and child dynamic, but the three-generation dynamic or spirituality of a family. I think it's a kind of anyways, it's a frontier that's brand new for me that I never really thought about very seriously until I became a grandparent. Would you like to comment on that, Dr. Ward? You're a grandparent as well, right?
I am, yeah. I think we have lots of grandparents on this tonight. No, I totally agree with you about that. I feel like I don't know, I'm gonna be changing my thing. It looks like I'm disappearing, going into the spirit world here myself, 1 second. Let me, excuse me. I think the great blessing of being a grandparent is it really, like, God gives us another chance to get it right. I feel, it's a very special thing, and I'm amazed because very, very young, I think within just a few months, somehow you sense that your grandchildren, they know that you're connected to them. It's an amazing thing, to see that from early on, there's this connection, and they know it and you know it, it's just an amazing thing. And it's something that really needs to be cultivated and kept. I totally agree with you, Jim. I think that the whole matter of the three generations, it's absolutely essential. And, the whole matter of just longing to be with your grandchildren, that's just there. That's a part of it, Mm-hmm. I guess with your children, you see them every day as they're growing up. Your grandchildren, you don't see as much. So you really have a chance, I think, to really, kind of this whole matter of rectifying your heart and also, cultivating your person and your relationship with them. So, yeah, I agree 1,000%. It's a very, very precious experience at another stage in life. It's very, very special.
Yeah, I think that there's a whole theory of family, and I do think that the three-generation version of it has to be integrated into the core theory of family.
I look forward to your presentation about that.
Thank you, Mika Deshotel. Thank you, Dr. Ward. We really appreciate everyone being here, and we look forward to continuing to dig into this very important topic among the other topics that Higher Purpose Forum is developing. Thank you.